All right, welcome back to TML Weekly. This is episode 22. Just John and I today. The other John, he's down in Florida enjoying a nice vacation with his family. So, yeah, we'll just get right into it. Uh, what do you think about the John Tortorella situation?
Well, I mean, I watched that one closely, and I'm not surprised he got suspended. Um, I've said I've crossed the line with the officials, multiple times over my coaching career. Not so much lately. Back in the day, you could get away with a lot more, but I think the big part of it, and that's what they said, was that he didn't leave, right? So I can remember certain situations I was in where like I said, you cross the line and you go. When they kick you out, you got to go. I think that's where the suspension and probably half the fine came from. Um, you know, it's a tough one. Torts is a fiery guy, and he said what he had to do. So I'm okay with the suspension just based on the fact that when they eject you, you got to go,
Right.
because then you're kind of you're not only questioning the authority, but you're kind of slapping the face of the NHL. Hey, one of your guys just told me to leave, and I didn't leave. So I get it. I think the Philly team will rally around it. They seem to be responding to this coach. I think they're overachieving. If you look at the lineup that they have, I think they're
Yeah.
uh, you know
Yeah, they're slipping out of a playoff spot right now.
they're still in it right now. So,
Yeah.
and then Toronto's got them Thursday night. So is his suspension over then? Do you know?
No, that'll be his. Or I'm not too sure. I think it'll probably be
They
his
play
second
tonight.
home
They
game.
play San Jose tonight or tomorrow.
Okay,
So,
then I think it'd be his second game.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I'm okay with that one. The NHL has to come. There's just so many inconsistencies on. I know what you got on your list to talk about Rempe last night. It was dirty. He's 6'8" or 6'7" or whatever it is. You leave your feet, you're gonna. I mean, you have to almost. And Zdeno Chara was a perfect example of how you compete at the highest level when you're that big, right? He
Right.
he he wasn't ever chicken winging guys. He would hit them with his hip almost more so than his shoulder, because his shoulder is going to be in their head. He would kind of use the girth of his body, and I mean, obviously he took some penalties, but this guy and the fact that McDermott. So a little bit of backstory: McDermott asked him to go early in the game based on a hit from the previous time that they
He
played.
wasn't even on the team. The Devils trade for him because of that situation with Rimpe.
Right. Rempe was running around. McDermott comes in from Denver. First shift, I think. He asked him to go. Rempe, no, I'm not going.
Yeah.
But then you go and you behave like that, and then you do this when you're ejected for, a pretty vicious hit.
Right.
So I didn't like the play. I didn't like I even more so I didn't like the yap. Yeah, I'm not saying that he should have fought McDermott in the first period. That's up to him. But and then you get thrown out, so you don't get a chance. They play again April 3rd. Circle that one on the calendar, because I think it's going to be, especially if you look, Rangers are locked in. Islanders are probably going to be, while they're playing, or no, sorry, Jersey's probably going to be out. You could see a 4 or 5 call ups from each of their American League affiliates to settle some scores. So we'll see about that. But he's got to watch his step. He really has to watch his step. That's 2, in my opinion, suspendable hits in the last 3 or 4 games. The one on Toronto I thought that was high, and he could have gone for that one too. So,
Right. So Chara was obviously similar size as Rempe.
Yeah.
When Chara first came in the league, did you notice like something like a little adjustment period at the start of his career?
Yeah, Chara wasn't a blue chip prospect. I remember Zdeno Chara playing junior for Prince George in the Western League, and he was one of those players that was happy to be playing major junior hockey. Let's put it that way. He wasn't dominant in the dub. It was his size, and he was so much bigger than anybody at that time when he was coming up. Since then, there's been 6'6", 6'7", 6'8". There wasn't a lot of guys like that. So people were like, "Whoa! If we could teach this guy how to play the game the right way, he's got some talent." And then look, he's got a Hall of Fame career,
Right.
So
yeah, I just
definitely be an adjustment, when you're that big. But you should have already made that adjustment because you're playing, major junior. That kid played. Rempe played in the dub. He should have. He shouldn't be leaving his feet when you're 6'7". You shouldn't be leaving your feet when you're 5'7", because it's illegal. But when you're that big, all that's going to do is create more force and blunt trauma to whatever it is you hit. Right when you're in the air and you use the momentum of your skating. He's got to figure that out, or he won't be in the NHL very long. But when you start costing your team, and and that turns into a couple of bad penalty and power play goals against losing game. He won't be in the lineup in the playoffs anyway, I wouldn't think. I mean, if that guy's getting more than a couple of minutes a game, you're probably not going to do real well. So.
Yeah, for sure. So I know you want to talk about the Kyle Clifford situation from this past week with the Toronto Marlies.
Yeah. Yeah, Cliffy, he's still hanging around. So I worked with Cliffy when he was a kid, and known the family for got to be 30 years. I mean, Clifford would be he's got to be 35 now. Upwards of 30 years. Anyway, honest player. I mean, he played in the Ontario League for Barrie, and was a hard working, in your face, finish your hit. And he'll drop his gloves and he'll fight. Went to LA. Part of one of the 2 Stanley Cups that they won in LA were hugely impacted by the fourth line, and that was, I think, Jordan Nolan, one of the Nolan brothers. That's one of the gyms on Chorsey, and right. Cliffy, and there was other guys in and out of the other side, but they were heavy, man. They finished their checks. They could all skate. They were big. And if you look at a lot of the cup winners over the last 20 years, the fourth line has been an instrumental part of that. Third and fourth line. You have to have a good bottom six, right? As good as your top six has to be, you got to have guys that can grind out minutes and give the other guys a chance to affect the scoreboard. But Cliffy, he moves over here to Toronto. Had a little bit of a stint, but the way this guy's played his entire career, he just has lost a step. But he's embraced it. He's playing with the Marlies in a leadership role. He had an incident earlier in the year where I think they had some sort of a scuffle with somebody, and he ended up hitting 3 or 4. He got suspended, and then you fast forward to this. I don't know the kid. I don't want to talk too much about the kid because, from what I hear, he's not a real good teammate. Do you know who I'm talking about? Dukas or something like that?
Yeah, the guy that he went after.
Yeah, so he played for the Marlies a couple of years ago, and wasn't a very good teammate. You ask anybody in the room that was part of that team, he was selfish and just undersized guy that yapped a lot, and the boys would have to protect, and wasn't playing a lot, wasn't in the Leafs plans. I mean, he's one of those guys that was kind of there. And last game of the season, he chose to sit out and make the team play short because he was unhappy. He knew he was leaving. He knew he wasn't going to sign. His contract was up, and he just basically said, "Yeah, I'm not able to play or whatever," and ghosted them. Left the rink. Never came back to Toronto. So you have that dynamic. And then, as we've discussed, when you're talking the Morgan Riley, Ridley Gregg incident, and the code and this kind of stuff that's being talked about right now. Now you've got this kid. He's back. They're actually in Springfield playing the Thunderbirds, and this kid's on that team, and he scores a goal. So the Marley guys hate him already, right? That's the guy that screwed us and walked away. We needed him. They didn't have any time to call anybody up, kind of thing. So scores a goal. Then he skates by the bench and chirps them. I don't know where these guys are growing up that they think that is when you got a guy like Kyle Clifford on the bench. Kyle Clifford isn't playing in the American Hockey League for money. Okay, he played 12 years in the National Hockey League. He's got enough money, right? He's doing that because he loves the game. I saw Kyle last summer. His son played against my son, as I was telling you off the air, and he's got 3 boys playing elite level hockey, and they love going to see him play, and whether it's with the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Toronto Marlboros, Kyle Clifford's going to play the same way. So you disrespect the team 3 or 4 years ago, fine. You're probably not going to get jumped for that, right? You might get beaked a little bit, maybe a little bit heavier on a forecheck or whatever. But you score a goal, which is I think 1 of 4 he's got all year. So the kid's not a hockey player, and then he skates by the bench and chirps the Marlboros bench when you're up 4-1 or 5-1 or something at that point. I don't know what you think you're going to get. But he's lucky that Cliffy let up. So if you watch the clip, anybody that hasn't seen the clip, just Google Kyle Clifford incident or whatever. He went out and he kind of, went after him, and the kid turtled like before he don't behave like that, kids. If there's kids listening, don't behave like that, right? You have to pay the piper if you want to behave like that. And I see it. My son's 10 years old, and they, their team and the Sellies, and our coach is great because he'll tell them when it's 3-0 and it's going to be a blowout. We score 3 in the first 4 minutes. He'll bring them in and say, enough. You score a goal, you go to center ice, right? And I think more coaches need to do that to the younger kids because they got to get into these habits. You start chirping benches and doing things like that, you're going to pay the price. It doesn't matter. People will take suspensions, right? A hockey player's mentality doesn't think about suspensions. I can assure you some of the suspensions that I took over the years, that didn't even cross my mind when an action takes place that, for lack of a better term, almost, a reaction to it is necessary. You don't think, oh, I better not do that. I might get 3 games. No, you just do it, right? You jump the bench. You do whatever you got to do to, be a good teammate. And Kyle Clifford is the epitome of a good teammate. He will. He's one of the guys that understands how to, be part of a culture. And he's played for tough coaches like Daryl Sutter in his career. And so I have no problem with Clifford. I think what he's doing is he's teaching those kids the right way. And the Maple Leafs organization should be really lucky that they have him still able to, to play. A lot of guys in his position wouldn't play.
Yeah, for sure.
They'd say, hey, you know what? Toronto doesn't want me. Sign my retirement papers, work as a pro scout or, an assistant coach or something like that. No, he wants to play hockey.
Right. So, yeah, he's not on the team on the Marlies. Obviously, score goals, like you said earlier. Like he knows his role there. He knows he's like a leader, protector.
Yeah, he likes to be around the guys, and it's a fantastic time. There's some of those guys out there. Wayne Simmons is another guy that's similar. Obviously had a better upside to him, was a better forward, but he's not playing in the American League. He's going to retire. Right. And I don't blame him. He probably has more money too. Right. He made a little bit more over the course of his career. Cliffy would make a couple million a year, 1.52, that kind of thing. And
not bad.
Yeah, he's close to home. His family's in Ayr, Ontario, and it's great.
Right. All right. Move on to the trade deadline.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of the trade deadline as a whole? The whole day. Did you watch? How do you keep up with it?
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I think they've sensationalized it a little bit too much. I liked it when maybe 15 years ago when it was a 2 or 3 hour show. Now it's 6-7 hours, and and I was back and forth between TSN and Sportsnet, mainly on TSN. I just didn't like. I don't know. It's too razzle dazzle, and I get it. They get sponsor money and this and that. Most of the big deals happened the day before. Everything was happening leading up to it. I think they should shorten it a little bit. Nothing really surprised me, I guess. Some of the players that went, nobody went that really. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe that.
Not Thomas Hurdle.
What's that?
Thomas Hurdle.
Yeah, that didn't surprise me.
Last minute.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas Hurdle's a San Jose legend, and if he went to them that morning and said, "Hey, can you get me out of here? Right, I'd love to have a shot," he's gonna go.
Yeah, I was more surprised because it came with like 5 minutes to go before the deadline.
And it
6 years
screwed
left.
New York. Screwed New York, that trade. I don't know if you know that. So San Jose, New York had a deal with for Barabanov. Okay. So New York had a deal in place for Barabanov with some salary retention.
Okay.
Each NHL team only has 3 retention spots. So you can only retain 3 different contracts at a time. Until one of them comes off the books, you're not in that game anymore. So apparently the Rangers had a deal in place, but then San Jose used their last retention spot on the Hurdle deal.
Probably because they got way more in return.
Right.
Yeah.
But now New York's on the outside looking in because they can't do the move without any retention. So interesting.
Yeah. Vegas, that's an interesting trade too because Vegas got obviously better player right now. Thomas Hurdle's in his prime, but he has 6 years left, and they're retaining salary on it. They're already retaining on Erik Karlsson, so that's 4 years for Karlsson, 6 years for Hurdle. Where you just have 2 retention spots.
They still got Brent Burns on.
Right.
Brent Burns in Carolina is still retained.
Yeah, so they got term on those retention slots.
I don't know. I would if you want me to retain salary, I want a lot more.
Yeah. Well, teams have charts too where they kind of grade how much they're going to give for how much percentage, but yeah, for 6 years of retention, took a division rivalry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, it's an arms race. All the top teams were doing something, or at least trying. I'm pretty sure Toronto was trying to do more, but I don't mind Toronto's trade deadline. I really don't, because they didn't give up anything.
Right.
They really, you know what I mean? The last 3 or 4 years, Dubas would, he would have got a higher end name probably than Treliving did, but he would overpaid, right? And a lot of times it's
not sustainable.
It just doesn't work. I like the Dewar kid. We said that if we could get somebody that could kill penalties and play with a little bit of grit in the bottom 6. Well, there's your guy, right?
Right.
I think he's going to be a big addition. Then you got Lyubushkin, who Johnny wanted bad, and I love him. He's he's the type of the player after that Rempe hit. A lot of guys aren't coming back for a month. Lyubushkin was at practice the next day, right?
Right. Yeah, I was concerned.
He's not going to be out of the lineup with a hangnail. Let's put it that way. He'll play unless he's incapacitated for sure. And then who was the last one? There was another dude.
Joel Edmondson.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah,
love it. Just he's that type of guy, right?
6'5",
He's no different than bringing in Luke Shen last year, right? Big, heavy guy that has won, right? Is a good positive. I read a report from a couple of his ex-teammates on different teams that said all that guy wants to do is win. He will put his face in, and that's what you want, right? You need that. You don't need as much skill as you need that on your back end. So I'm okay with it. They didn't give up much.
Sure. Yeah. All they gave up was 2/3, 4th, 6th, and prospect Ovechkinov.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure how to say his name, but legacy got coming in waivers. It's a little unfortunate.
That's fine.
Yeah. He's been pretty good this year, but he's one of those players replaceable.
They brought in a D-man too, a big D-man from somewhere. He's playing Boston College.
Oh, right. Yeah. They traded a 6th to Carolina for
the rights to sign him.
Yeah, I forget his name. 6'7" though. So
probably probably the kid wasn't going to sign with Carolina, is what it came down to. The agent probably got a whole,
probably because Carolina has really good D.
Well, and when you have a U.S., they've got a goofy rule with the U.S. that if you don't sign them within 2 years of drafting them or something like that, then they go back into the draft as one of those guys.
Yeah, it's NCAA rule. You still have it on Fox too, where they have more leverage.
Yeah, that happened to Fox, didn't it?
Yeah, and the Jimmy VC sweepstake too.
Yeah, because Fox was originally drafted by Calgary.
Yeah, and then traded to Carolina, and then said he wasn't going to sign with Carolina. So they traded him to New York for.
Yeah, this kid just won D-Man of the week in the ECAC or whatever conference he's in there, Hockey East. Yeah. So,
all right,
good future.
Yeah. So speaking of Carolina too, what do you think of the Jake Gensel deal? Do you like they're saying that dude was God, or?
We talked about this. I think they could have got more for Jake Gensel. Honestly, I think Carolina stole him. I don't think that the forward there, the ex-Leaf,
Bunting
has hasn't done well there. Hasn't had a good year there, and now they get rid of him and bring in a guy like Gensel. I think they overpaid Bunting, and I get why. I mean, his numbers were good over the last few years in Toronto, but you got to realize who he was playing with too. One of those guys that plays on the edge, and I think he can help them. But now Pittsburgh's stuck with him for what, 3 more years?
Yeah, 2 or 3. I think 2 after this year maybe. But
yeah, I don't see that. And you know what? Ever since I mentioned this last Tuesday night about Sid leaving, I don't know if you've watched the news.
Yeah, he didn't seem too happy after that trade happened.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So yeah, it's definitely up in question whether Sid gets moved this summer or not. But I also just think Pittsburgh kind of just got back like a couple B or C level prospects, a conditional first, only if the Canes win the cup.
Yeah,
kind of a crazy condition.
I you know what? I mean, it was a typical trade deadline, guys. Teams. There's no science to it, Nolan. You don't know what you need. Everybody thinks they know what they need. Everybody thinks they know, oh, we need a right shot 4 or 5 D-man that, penalty kills. Or we need a left winger that can play in the middle 9. Or no. You know what? You don't know. You can make an educated guess at what you need, right? And I think managers probably have their jobs because they're pretty good at identifying talent and they know who can play. But at the end of the day, until somebody puts the cup over their head, you don't know who won the deadline. These articles that you see that who won the deadline. Well, how do you know until we see who wins the cup? We see who goes out. We see who goes out for 4 straight in the first round, and they just gave up their first for the next 5 years. They lost the deadline, but we don't know that yet, right? And it's it's arbitrary. I can tell you what I think a team needs. Glenn Sather said something. Oh, it had to have been in the 80s or maybe when he was with New York at first in the early 90s. And Glenn Sather said it's really easy to be a manager in the National Hockey League. And then, of course, this is 20 years before the salary cap and stuff like that. Made it a little harder. But he said, all you got to know is who can play. Who can play? And you can hire everything else, right? You can hire a guy to coach them. You can hire a guy to, structure your power play or this and that. You got to know who can play in different situations. So, it is what it is. I think it gets too hyped up now. I really do. I think a strong general manager isn't going to wait until an hour before a deadline to make a deal that he honestly believes his team needs to compete in the postseason. That's done 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, Treliving also came out and said he believes you build your team in the offseason rather than the trade deadline.
Yeah.
I kind of like that take
on it.
And
you tweak it a little bit. You bring in, and those were good tweaks. Those were 3 solid moves. You're going to have 3 guys in your lineup on opening night of the playoffs that you didn't have, a week ago or 10 days ago. And, and you didn't give up a ransom. So I'm okay with it. I have no problem with this deadline.
Yeah, no, I'm
Ask me again when the season's over, because, something might get exposed. Maybe it's a goaltender. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
The
guys,
and
it sends a message to your group too. Okay.
Yeah.
How about the group last year that was having a pretty good run? And then all of a sudden 5-6 guys come in at the deadline. And there's guys that have been busting their balls for you all year, that it's like, hey, thanks for all your effort. And I know we're, 30 games over 500, but you know what? We got a guy that we think is better than you, so you can watch. It can cause a negative effect on your dressing room, because those guys that kind of battle together all year and then get pushed out, they've got to be professional. But then there's guys that are still in the group that may think, why would they move that guy out? Why didn't they trust what we were doing? And the last 3 or 4 years, every year they bring in 2 or 3 or 4 guys. I don't mind this. These guys aren't guys that are going to, they're going to compete and have a healthy competition with the other guys that are there. I think they were brought in. Like, if you brought in a first line winger or center iceman that somebody was going to get bumped out of the, Ryan O'Reilly is a perfect example. He comes in and now it's like everybody's going, oh, is he here for my job? Right? Am I going to go back going from 14 to 6 minutes? So there's none of that. There's
2 different ways it can go, though. You can, if your team's good and then your manager makes some moves, you can be like, oh, he's rewarding us. He believes in us. He's going to try to add to the team.
Yeah.
He's going to go spend future assets to try to make us better now because he believes that we have a chance to win. Or you can see it as he doesn't believe that we're good enough the way we are, so he's got to go spend stuff to try to make us better. So it's kind of balancing.
And as a player, you want them to show a little bit of faith in you and your team. Right? These guys love each other, right? They're a tight knit group, and for him to not go and make a huge splash like was rumored with all these names that were out there, I think maybe says something to the room and says, hey guys, figure it out. And if they can't, then we're going to see some fireworks in the offseason. You'll have a new coach. You're going to, that core 4. Now, talking about the Crosby thing, and I don't know where it came from. Toronto surprises me a little bit because he was a diehard Montreal Canadiens fan as a kid. We were actually at Cole Harbour Arena yesterday, and they have a little display case in the rink, one for Sid and one for Nathan right beside it, and there was a pair of Sydney's childhood pajamas, and they were Montreal Canadian little pajamas that are kind of in this memorabilia display. Jack and I were looking at it, and but Montreal's not close enough. Montreal's not going to compete until Sid's done. So Toronto makes sense. I mean, Colorado makes sense.
Yeah. Who reported that? I briefly heard.
There's been reported
3 places. But.
I didn't hear anything about this until we talked about it on our show last week, and I was convinced something might, and I'm still convinced something was very close to maybe happening, but I don't think they had enough time. And when you move a guy like that, there has to be a lot of discussions with agents and owners and all kinds of stuff. But I think that's going to heat up now. I really do. And Dubas has to be able to build this team his way. And I would like to think when he negotiated his contract, that was discussed. Hey, I'll give this group a year and let's see. But I want the ability to ask these guys to waive no trades if I think it's going to help the team. I think it's going to ultimately come down to Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang and their representatives. But they're going to be further away from winning as a group, as I said last week, next year than they are right now, and they're not close. Right. So you split these guys up. They should have moved Gino a couple of years ago, and they could have got something for him. You're almost going to have to give these guys away. You know, except for Crosby, not Crosby. There was a report that came out today that somebody said, well, with Marner being up after next year, a 1-for-1 deal for Crosby for Marner. You know, if you know you're not going to sign him, absolutely. If you know that Marner's going to walk at the end and they won't talk about a contract extension, I'd do it right now, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, you're gonna trade a 27-year-old superstar for a 35-year-old superstar.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know.
I don't do that. I don't do that. But you know, if you know
Pittsburgh definitely would do that though.
If you know he's going, I mean, you know, Tavares' money's up at the end of next year. You know, and it's not about what Sidney got 2 more or 1 more.
Next year's his final.
Yeah,
he's eligible for extension July 1st.
Right. So we'll see something. You know, where there's smoke, there's fire. But Colorado seems like the likely destination for him.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to even imagine Crosby in a Leafs jersey. Can't even.
Yeah. No,
can't even picture that in my head.
Too. That's tough for me too. But I get why he would be interested in going there. Right.
Yeah, for sure. Contending team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else do we got? What did we do last week? We only had we played Boston, lost to Boston again.
Yeah, so we had Boston, Buffalo, Montreal. I think I said 4 points and they got 4. So there's one.
I said 6.
Yeah.
John, you know what? I didn't mind the second Boston game.
Yeah, no, I like the fight, definitely.
I like the battle. My son's team just, you know, I said to one of the other dads the other night, we played Cole Harbor Wings in the Metro Minor League, or CMHL, which is our league, 13-team league. We played in the provincial final against them and lost in overtime 2-1, and just a hell of a hockey game by both teams. I mean, this is, you know, 9 and 10-year-old kids. A couple of them have turned 11 already, but they, you know, for it to be 2-1 in minor hockey at any level is that's structured hockey, right? You know, neither side was giving up anything. But here's a stat that I said going in. We played Cole Harbor 3 times this year and beat them all 3 times. And then they come in and steal one from us when it mattered the most. So wins and losses in the regular season, guys don't think about that. I think what they think about is compete level and battle, and you know, how did we show up? And I thought Toronto showed up. I thought they pushed Boston around. Actually, I thought, you know, regardless what the scoreboard said, and again, Toronto didn't need that win. You know, that's not going to be a make or break point or two to get into the playoffs. But what they did was they showed them that, you know, we've got some guys. You know, I think Domi's been great, fantastic. Bertuzzi, great. Like, these guys are starting to play now that the games are getting a little bit more. And I said this in the fall. You know, our buddy there, Johnny, was, you know, Domi and Bertuzzi. I said, don't worry about Domi and Bertuzzi in November. Worry about Domi and Bertuzzi in March and April and May, when they're going to earn and they're going to play the style of hockey that, you know, that wins championships. So you know what, I like it. I like the direction. I didn't see the Montreal game. I don't know where I was. I was out or something. But I heard it was kind of a flat game. But hey, you know what? When you win in Montreal on a Saturday night, I don't care, flat or what. We'll take it every time.
Yeah, it's definitely always nice beating Habs. But yeah, no, the Boston game, I thought it was a good battle. Marner should have shot that one to tie the game. You see that part? It was 2-1 Boston. Marner had the empty net to shoot into, and then he went for the wraparound instead.
Oh yeah, I did.
Would have tied the game, but
yeah.
So I think there's a couple of mistakes. That game could have been flipped around. You see the Willie turnover at the blue line. Frederick went down, breakaway.
Yeah, that, you know, but that's, you know what? For every time that Nylander does something like that, He does 50 things that'll help you. So, but yeah, he kind of blew a tire, tried to toe drag or whatever. I saw that highlight. It's tough. That's a tough one. But again, that game doesn't matter. The game that's going to matter is the deciding game in April when they go.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so Joseph Wall played both games against Boston. Do you think that's a sign that the Leafs are planning on starting him in the playoffs and they just want to get him ready against Boston?
No.
Or do you think they're trying to shelter Sammy from Boston so they can't find Sammy's weaknesses or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, there's tape on all these guys, right? Like, there's programs now where you can filter through software every shot that goes on a goalie and watch them all in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Watch 32 shots on Sammy in 2 minutes. So it's not a scouting report thing. I think it's more of a head thing. It's more of a confidence thing. They wouldn't want him to go and lose one of those or get shelled, or I think he's the guy. I really do. I think he's going to be the guy. But Wall is ready and Jones is ready, and they're just were playing Rempe last night on Hockey Central.
Oh, yeah.
Waving like that.
Yeah, after he refused to fight. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was a weird look.
He's got some learning.
Yeah, for sure.
What do we got coming up? So you got to know Philly on Thursday.
Yeah, so no games from Monday to Wednesday.
Yeah.
But then we got Philly in Philly on Thursday, and then Carolina back at home. St. Pat's jersey.
Saturday,
7:00, and then that's it till next Tuesday. So only 4 points on the
who do they
here.
play next Tuesday?
Philly again. Torch's first game back, or might be a second or third back.
Yeah.
But.
So Philly without Torts. That's a tough place to win. I'm going to go 4 points. I think they have to. Saturday night, St. Pat's Day, the green jerseys, Carolina. After they made all these moves and basically sacrificed their whole future to win today. I think Toronto has to kind of show up. So I'm going to say 4 points.
Okay. I'd probably go 4-2, but just to change it up, I'll go 3.
Okay.
Say they lose in overtime to Philly and beat the Canes. We'll get John's answer too. And
John will say 0.
Oh, he's in right now, actually. Or
is he?
16 minutes ago.
Oh, he's at Jimmy Buffett's. Having a margarita.
Yeah, he said, glad we did not give up our first. Which is a good point, too. I'm actually kind of happy that I was willing to move it to try to, if there's something on the line, to improve significantly. But I'm happy it's still here. Keep all your good prospects. Keep your first.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Everything is about assets, right?
Right.
You can, anyway. So I can't hear it. I've got it muted, but Brad Mayday's talking about the Rempe stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what he has to say. He was a battler too. So anyway, all good, Nolan. What do you got going on this week? Anything exciting?
No, nothing really, to be honest. Just enjoying the nice weather here and getting back outdoors more, playing some street hockey, just trying to stay outside. And what about you?
Yeah, well, it's March break this week, so we're doing hanging out, lots of going to watching hockey. Got practice tomorrow. We had practice yesterday. We went to the Discovery Center in Halifax. Has a big hockey exhibit going on where you time your shot, and there's a target thing, and there's some displays and stuff like that. So we went down there and checked that out today, and it was fun.
Nice.
All right, well, have a good week, folks, and watch us on our socials. Thanks to Bjorn and Don Cherry Sports Grill for their continued support, and we'll talk to you all next week.